The Galactic Council had many traditions, but my personal favorite was the one where newly discovered species got to present themselves to the assembled representatives with all the pomp and self-importance they could muster. I'm Kravix, senior observer for the Council. Been doing this job for 217 cycles now, and let me tell you, nothing prepared me for the day the humans walked into that chamber. Most species show up trying to look impressive. The humans just looked tired. Their delegation was led by a woman named Yuki Tanaka, flanked by 4 others, a broad-shouldered man called Dmitry Volkov, a wiry fellow who introduced himself as Kwame Osei, a sharp-eyed woman named Priya Sharma, and someone who went by the name River Chen. Ordinary names, ordinary appearance, nothing that screamed galactic threat in any obvious way. The Vrex ambassador, a hulking reptilian creature named Thaxmore, who loved the sound of his own voice, decided to test them immediately. So he rumbled, his scales catching the overhead lights. What makes humanity believe it deserves a seat among the true powers of the galaxy? Yuki smiled, and I swear I felt a chill run down my dorsal ridge. We don't believe we deserve anything, Ambassador. We're here because you invited us. But since you asked, she gestured to Dmitry, who pulled up a holographic display. What happened next became known as the demonstration, though those of us who witnessed it prefer not to discuss it at formal gatherings. The humans didn't show us their weapons, their ships, or their technology. Instead, they showed us their history. This is Earth, Kwame began, his voice steady and unremarkable. 3rd planet from an average star, 1 moon, 70% water coverage. Seems pleasant enough, right? The hologram showed a blue-green world, rotating peacefully. What you're looking at is a death trap that spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything that lived on it. The display shifted, showing creatures I could barely comprehend, massive reptilian beasts that made Thaxmore look like a hatchling. These dominated our world for over 160 million years, River explained, their tone conversational, almost bored. Then a rock fell from the sky, 10 kilometers across, moving at 20 kilometers per second. The impact released energy equivalent to, they paused, checking their notes, approximately 10 billion of our largest nuclear weapons. I watched the simulation, my breathing holes constricting. The asteroid hit, and the world became fire. 90% of all species died, River continued. The ones that survived did so in caves, in deep water, in whatever holes they could find. And then, because Earth wasn't quite done, the planet went through an ice age. Your point being, Thaxmore growled, though I noticed his tail had stopped its usual confident swaying. No point yet, Yuki said cheerfully. Just context. Priya, would you mind? Priya stepped forward, and her smile was somehow worse than Yuki's. Right. So fast forward a few million years. Small mammals survived the extinction event, our ancestors as it happens. Fragile things, really. No claws worth mentioning, no natural armor, no venom, no speed to speak of, on a planet filled with predators that could literally bite us in half. She pulled up images of various Earth creatures, each one more terrifying than the last. Saber-toothed cats, cave bears, giant hyenas, short-faced bears, dire wolves. Our world was an all-you-can-eat buffet, and we were the appetizer. So you hid, suggested Ambassador Telnara of the Shift Collective, her crystalline form humming with what I'd learned to recognize as contempt. Oh, we tried that, Dmitry rumbled, his accent thick and oddly musical. Didn't work. Turns out, when you're slow and weak and everything wants to eat you, hiding just means you die tired, so we did something else. Something, probably not very smart in retrospect. The hologram shifted again, showing primitive humans, barely more than apes, really surrounding a massive woolly creature with tusks longer than their entire bodies. We hunted back, Dmitry said simply. Everything that tried to eat us, we figured out how to eat it first. We became persistence hunters. We couldn't outrun our prey, so we just didn't stop. We'd chase an animal for days, sometimes weeks, never letting it rest, never letting it escape, until it literally collapsed from exhaustion. Then we'd walk up and kill it. I felt my secondary stomach churn. The other council members had gone very quiet. But that's not even the interesting part, Kwame interjected, and I wanted to scream at him that it was in fact extremely interesting and also deeply disturbing. The interesting part is what happened when we ran out of large prey to hunt. Know what we did? No one answered. I'm not sure anyone was breathing. We invented agriculture, Kwame said, as if this were the most natural progression in the world. We looked at plants and thought, you know what? If we can hunt animals to extinction, we can definitely make grass do what we want. So we did. We bent entire ecosystems to our will, turned forests into farmland, redirected rivers, reshaped coastlines, and when the planet fought back with droughts and floods and famines, we just adapted, built better tools, developed better techniques, kept going. Yuki took over again, her voice dropping to something almost conversational, which somehow made it worse. Here's the thing about Earth, and I really cannot stress this enough. It never stopped trying to kill us. Earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, pandemics, ice ages, heat waves. Our planet threw literally everything at us. And we looked at each disaster and thought, okay, how do we survive the next one? The hologram showed human cities being destroyed by natural disasters, then being rebuilt, then being destroyed again, then being rebuilt stronger. Over and over, an endless cycle of destruction and reconstruction. We built cities on fault lines, Priya said, counting off on her fingers. In flood zones, in tornado alleys, on volcanic islands, below sea level, in deserts, in frozen tundra, in places where the air itself tries to kill you. And when those places got destroyed, because of course they did, we rebuilt them in the same spots, just better, more resistant, more stubborn. This is madness, Tel Nara whispered, and for once I agreed with her completely. Oh, we're just getting started, River said, and their grin was absolutely unhinged. Let's talk about how we conquered fire. Most species in the galaxy discovered fire, sure, but we made it our best friend. We carried it with us everywhere, fed it, nurtured it, used it to cook our food, warm our homes, forge our tools, power our machines. Fire, the thing that destroys everything it touches, and we domesticated it. The display shifted to show humans standing in the midst of controlled burns, using fire to clear land, to shape metal, to launch themselves into space. We literally rode explosions into orbit, River continued, their enthusiasm building, sat on top of barely controlled detonations and pointed ourselves at the stars. Lost a few people in the process, sure, but we kept doing it. Because that's what we do. We look at the thing that kills us, and we make it work for us instead. Dmitri leaned forward, his massive frame somehow making him look thoughtful, rather than threatening. You want to know why Earth produced us? Why we're the way we are? It's because our world gave us two choices, evolve or die, adapt or perish, learn or vanish, and we chose option 3. What's option 3? I heard myself ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Spite, Dmitri said simply. Pure, stubborn, bloody-minded spite. We refused to die. We refused to accept our limitations. When nature said we were prey, we became predators. When it said we were too weak to survive, we built tools. When it said we'd gone as far as we could go, we invented new ways to go further. Every single obstacle our planet put in our way, we took as a personal challenge. Kwame pulled up new images. Humans in spacesuits, walking on airless moons, humans in submarines, exploring crushing ocean depths, humans in laboratories, splitting atoms and mapping genomes. We went to the bottom of our deepest ocean trenches, where the pressure should have crushed us like insects. We went to the top of our highest mountains, where the air is too thin to breathe. We went to our poles where the cold will kill you in minutes. We went to our deserts, where there's no water for hundreds of kilometers. And in every single place we planted a flag and said, this is ours now, but your planet. Ambassador Thaxmore's voice had lost all its earlier bravado. Your planet is a paradise compared to some worlds. Surely, paradise. Yuki's laugh was sharp enough to cut. Ambassador, 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water we can't drink. Most of our land is either too hot, too cold, too dry, or too wet for comfortable habitation. Our atmosphere has just enough oxygen to keep us alive, but not enough to make us truly efficient. We require constant food, constant water, constant temperature regulation. We are by design poorly suited for our own world, and yet, we conquered it anyway. She brought up a new series of images, and these were the ones that finally broke the Council's composure. Humans in war, fighting each other with increasingly sophisticated weapons. Oh, and when we ran out of external threats, When we'd mapped every continent and domesticated every useful animal and bent every ecosystem to our will, we turned on each other, spent thousands of years developing newer, better, more efficient ways to kill our own species, not because we were mind-controlled, not because of some genetic imperative, but because we disagreed about ideas, abstract concepts. We weaponized everything from rocks to pathogens to the fundamental forces of physics, all to prove points to each other. The Council needs to understand something, Priya said, her voice cutting through the shocked silence. Every species you've encountered so far came from worlds that nurtured them, protected them, allowed them to develop in relative safety. You meet species that evolved in stable ecosystems, where cooperation and harmony were survival strategies. And then you meet us. River picked up the thread seamlessly. We come from a world that spent 4 billion years trying to sterilize itself. A world where the single biggest evolutionary advantage was the ability to look at impossible odds and say, "Watch me anyway." We climbed to the top of our food chain, not through claws or fangs or venom, but through sheer, obstinate refusal to accept our place in it. We made tools. We built societies. We created art and music and literature and philosophy, all while everything around us was actively trying to end us. And here's the really terrifying part, Yuki said, and I realized with mounting horror that there was more. Everything I've just told you, all of that struggle and survival and adaptation, we kind of miss it. The silence in the council chamber was absolute. See, we spent so long fighting our world that we got really good at fighting, Dmitri explained, his tone almost apologetic. Problem-solving became our primary skill set. When we finally achieved some measure of control over our environment, we got restless, started looking for new challenges, new frontiers, new impossible odds to overcome. Which is why, Kwame continued, when we detected signs of intelligent life in the galaxy, our first instinct wasn't fear or caution, it was excitement. Finally, something new to struggle against, new problems to solve, new competitions to win. We've been looking forward to meeting you all for quite some time. Ambassador Telnara's crystalline form flickered with what I'd come to recognize as extreme agitation. You're telling us you view interstellar contact as another challenge to overcome. Another thing to conquer? Conquer. Yuki looked genuinely offended, which somehow made it worse. No. You misunderstand. We don't want to conquer you. Where's the fun in that? We want to compete with you, trade with you, learn from you, argue with you, occasionally annoy you. We want to see what you've built, and think, okay, but can we do it better? We want to take your best ideas and improve them, then watch you improve them further, then improve them again. It's a game, Ambassador, one we've been playing with ourselves for millennia. A game, Thaxmore repeated flatly. His earlier aggression completely evaporated. The best kind, River said enthusiastically. Cooperative competition. You have technology we don't. Fantastic. We'll study it, adapt it, make our own version, then show you what we came up with. You have cultural practices we find interesting? Great. We'll incorporate them into our own societies in weird and probably unintended ways. You have problems you can't solve? Even better. We love a good challenge. It's how we improve. Priya stepped forward, her expression somewhere between apologetic and proud. Look, I understand this is a lot to process. You're used to species that achieve spaceflight through centuries of careful, peaceful development. Rational beings who cooperate because it's logical, who avoid conflict because it's inefficient, who respect boundaries because it's proper. She paused, letting that sink in. We're not those beings. We achieved spaceflight in less than a century once we really committed to it. We went from powered flight to landing on our moon in 66 years, and that includes a massive global war in the middle that actually accelerated our technological development because, again, we weaponize everything. The hologram shifted to show human spacecraft, not sleek, elegant vessels like the council members used, but crude, boxy things that looked like they'd been assembled from spare parts and determination. Our first space stations were repurposed missile components, Dmitri said with something that might have been pride. We looked at weapons designed to deliver apocalypse and thought, but what if we used them to deliver people instead? Most of our early space program was literally taking weapons and finding peaceful applications. Dual-use technology, we call it. Very efficient. The thing is, Kwame interjected, pulling up star charts. We're curious. pathologically, dangerously curious. We look at the unknown, and our first instinct is to poke it with a stick. Black holes? Let's get closer. Quantum mechanics? Let's see if we can weaponize it. Understand it. Dark matter? Challenge accepted. We've sent probes to the edge of our solar system powered by nuclear reactors, just to see what's out there. We've pointed radio telescopes at the sky for decades, desperately hoping someone would answer, with absolutely no plan for what we'd do if they actually did. And now someone has answered, I said quietly, finally finding my voice. And you came here, to the council, knowing full well you'd be evaluated, judged, possibly rejected. Of course, Yuki said, as if this were obvious. We always assume we're being tested. Our whole history is one long test with immediate and usually fatal consequences for failure. This, she gestured at the assembled council members, this is just another exam. We'll pass or we'll fail, and either way we'll learn something useful. River pulled up a new set of data, and I recognized it with growing unease. It was council military capabilities, trade routes, technological specifications, information that should have been classified. We've been watching you for a while, by the way. Ever since we detected your faster-than-light signatures, did some reconnaissance, intercepted some broadcasts, analyzed your languages and cultures. Hope you don't mind. We figured it was better to know what we were getting into before we knocked on your door. You spied on us, Telnara said, her harmonics shifting toward what I suspected was outrage. Before first contact, before any diplomatic overtures, you violated our privacy. We preferred to think of it as due diligence. Priya interrupted cheerfully. Look at it from our perspective. We're about to introduce ourselves to a galactic community that's been around for thousands of years. They have technology we can barely understand, ships that can cross light years in days, weapons that could probably sterilize our planet from orbit. Would you walk into that situation blind? Because we wouldn't. We're not suicidal, just thorough. Dmitri nodded sagely. Besides, we figured you were doing the same to us. When we detected your observation posts in our outer system, we assumed it was standard procedure. Were we wrong? Because that would be awkward. His grin suggested he knew exactly how awkward it was. There was a long, uncomfortable pause. Several council members exchanged glances. We had indeed been observing humanity for several cycles now, trying to determine if they were ready for contact. Apparently they'd noticed. Let me see if I understand correctly, Thaxmore said slowly, his tail now completely still. You detected our presence, identified us as a potential threat, studied us without permission, and then decided to introduce yourselves anyway, despite knowing we could destroy you. Pretty much, yeah, Kwame confirmed. Though to be fair, we don't think you will destroy us. Cost-benefit analysis doesn't work out. We're too far from your major trade routes to be a real threat. We have resources you might find useful, and wiping us out would require an expenditure of force that would damage your reputation among other council members. Plus, there's the whole unknown capabilities problem. Unknown capabilities, I heard myself ask. Yuki's smile returned, sharp and knowing. Ambassador Kravix, you've been observing us for how long? 3 cycles? 4? In that time, how many technological revolutions have you witnessed among your own species? I thought about it. Perhaps 1. The Vrex developed a new faster-than-light calculation method last cycle. We've had 6 major technological paradigms shift in the last 10 years, River said casually. Quantum computing went from theoretical to practical. Genetic engineering became routine. Artificial intelligence reached human-level cognition in specific domains. Fusion power became economically viable. Nanotechnology moved from laboratories to manufacturing. And we're currently working on at least a dozen other breakthrough technologies that could fundamentally alter our capabilities. They pulled up a timeline, and my breathing holes constricted again. The rate of change was insane. This is what we mean by unknown capabilities, River continued. You can observe us today and form accurate assessments of what we can do today. But tomorrow? Next month? Next year? We don't even know what we'll be capable of. How could you? Our scientists estimate we're approximately 50 to 70 years behind your average council member in terms of overall technology, Priya added. But we also estimate we'll close that gap in 15 to 20 years at our current rate of development. And here's the thing, our rate of development is accelerating. We get better at getting better. It's what we do. Kwame brought up historical data, showing humanity's technological progress over the last few centuries. The curve was exponential, then super exponential, then, I didn't even have mathematics to describe what I was seeing. We went from horse-drawn carriages to landing on our moon in a single human lifetime, he explained. From the first electronic computers to artificial intelligence in 60 years, from discovering nuclear fission to building functional fusion reactors in 80 years. We don't progress linearly, we compound our knowledge, building each generation's breakthroughs on the previous generation's foundations. And you're sharing this with us because, Nara asked suspiciously. Transparency, Yuki said simply. We want you to understand what you're dealing with, not to threaten you, but to set realistic expectations. If you admit us to the council, we're going to be annoying. We're going to ask uncomfortable questions, challenge established norms, propose alternative solutions to problems you've considered solved. We're going to take your technologies and iterate on them in ways you didn't anticipate. We're going to be competitive, ambitious, and occasionally insufferable. That's just who we are. But, Dmitri added, his voice dropping to something almost gentle, we're also going to be loyal. Once we commit to something, a treaty, an alliance, a friendship, we're committed. We'll fight for our allies with the same bloody-minded determination we fight for ourselves. We'll share our innovations, defend our partners, honor our agreements. Because despite everything else, we understand the value of cooperation. We learned it the hard way, fighting our own planet and each other for millennia. River stepped forward, their expression serious for the first time. Here's what we're offering, Council. You get a species that's innovative, adaptable, and relentlessly driven to improve. We'll contribute to your scientific endeavors, participate in your cultural exchanges, defend your borders if needed. In return, we get access to your knowledge, your markets, your broader community. It's a fair trade. And if we refuse? Thaxmore asked quietly. Yuki shrugged. Then we go home, continue developing on our own, and check back in a few decades to see if you've changed your minds. We're patient when we need to be. It took us 4 billion years to evolve. We can wait a little longer for diplomatic recognition, though I'll be honest, we'd prefer not to. Working together seems more interesting than working separately. Priya brought up one final image. Earth, as seen from space, blue and white and achingly beautiful. This is what made us, she said softly. A world that was simultaneously our greatest enemy and our only home. It tried to kill us with ice ages and meteor strikes and supervolcanoes and pandemics. It gave us predators that hunted us, diseases that devastated us, disasters that nearly ended us, and we loved it anyway. We fought for every square meter of it. We studied it, protected it, even as we reshaped it to suit our needs. And now we're here, Kwame continued, ready to extend that same fierce loyalty to a broader community. You're right to be cautious about us. We're dangerous. But we're dangerous to your enemies, not to you. We're the species that turned a death-trap planet into a garden, that took weapons designed for mutual destruction and repurposed them for exploration, that looked at impossible odds and made them routine. Imagine what we could accomplish if we had allies who understood us. The council chamber fell silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence, contemplative rather than shocked. I looked around at my fellow ambassadors, seeing their various expressions of uncertainty, calculation, and in some cases reluctant admiration. You've given us much to consider, I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. The council will deliberate and provide our decision within the standard period. Take your time, Yuki said graciously. We'll be here. Well, not here specifically. We'll be at our ship. But you know what I mean. She gathered her delegation with a gesture, and they began to leave. As they reached the exit, Dmitri paused and turned back. Oh, one more thing. Something we probably should have mentioned earlier. His grin was absolutely wicked. Everything we've shown you today, our history, our capabilities, our technological development, that's just Earth. We have 3 colony worlds now, 2 major orbital habitats, and 17 research outposts throughout our system. And they're all developing their own innovations, their own solutions, their own ways of doing things. The rate of progress we showed you, it's about to get a lot faster. He left, and the chamber erupted in debate. 3 cycles later, the council voted to admit humanity as provisional members. The vote wasn't unanimous. Nara abstained, and a few others voted against, but it passed. I was assigned as humanity's primary liaison, a role I accepted with mixed feelings. Over the following years, every prediction the humans made about themselves proved accurate. They were annoying, they challenged everything, they improved on council technology in ways we hadn't thought possible. They also became our fiercest allies, our most innovative partners, and our most reliable defenders. And when the Kresh Empire invaded our outer territories 5 years later, we learned exactly why humanity had earned the informal title of most dangerous species in the galaxy. But that's another story entirely, one I'm still not sure I have clearance to tell. The humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. They're not very good at the speaking softly part, but they've certainly mastered the stick. And I, for one, am very glad they're on our side.